Mara Wilson stood in the center of her small apartment, her phone glowing in her hand like a warning she never expected. The message from her family was short, cold, and final. We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely. No explanation. No conversation. No chance to breathe. Just a verdict. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument they had ever thrown at her. Mara was a quiet woman in her early 30s, working in payroll at a local medical facility. Her life ran on neat routines, soft lighting, clean countertops, color-coded receipts, and a sense of order she built carefully because her family life never had any. She had always been the reliable one, the problem solver, the responsible backbone no one thanked. But in that moment, staring at the message, she didn't crumble. Something inside her clicked, steady and irreversible, as if her entire body finally understood a truth her mind had been avoiding for years. She watched the screen dim and brighten again, and instead of reacting, she simply sat down on her bed and breathed. Before she told the rest of her story, she imagined speaking to the people who might understand. Please tell us where you are watching from today. Hit the like button, and subscribe to this channel for more. It was almost comforting, the thought of someone listening from somewhere far away, someone who didn't want anything from her. Mara had spent most of her life carrying everyone else's burdens like stacked grocery bags digging into her palms. Her mother loved to quote, "Family helps family," usually when asking for more money. Her father preferred guilt-tipped lectures about duty and loyalty. And her younger sister Haley never missed a chance to call her banker girl, half-joking, fully dependent. Mara's job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and steadiness was something her family used like a resource. Every bill that went unpaid, every emergency that appeared out of thin air, every "I'll pay you back next week," landed on her shoulders without question. She never complained. She never pushed back. She just kept paying. Extended relatives joined the pattern easily. The family group chat was always full of jokes, memes, and updates, until money came up. Then the tone sharpened. Suddenly Mara was reminded of how much her parents had sacrificed, how Haley deserved a break, how she shouldn't make things awkward. No one ever asked about her own budget or how tightly she had to stretch her paycheck each month. No one asked what she wanted. In all that noise, the only person who ever saw her clearly was her Uncle Mark. He ran a small moving service across town, a quiet man with strong hands and soft insight. He never asked her for anything. He never hinted. He just watched. Mara never knew how deeply his presence mattered until much later. For years, she convinced herself this was normal, that every family had roles, and hers just happened to make her the provider. But every time she opened her banking app, something squeezed inside her, a small knot pulling tighter. And then came the night everything began to shift. The shift started with Haley, of course. Mara had stopped by their parents' apartment for dinner, a habit she maintained out of obligation more than comfort. Haley arrived last, breezing inside wearing a brand new coat, the tag still creased into the collar. She barely said hello before announcing she had found a safer, nicer apartment on the other side of the city. "You'll cover the deposit, right?" Haley said casually, scrolling through her phone like she was ordering lunch. Mara kept her voice steady as she said, "No, not angry. Not loud. Just a boundary spoken plainly, one she had practiced in the bathroom mirror." The room went silent. Her mother froze with a dish towel in hand. Her father sucked in a slow, disappointed breath. Haley didn't flinch. She smirked. "Come on, banker girl. It's not that deep." Mara left early, sitting in her car with the heater ticking, wondering why protecting herself felt like betrayal. But the real blow came 2 days later. At work, Mara answered her office phone with her usual professional calm. The voice on the other end was cheerful, her parents' landlord, calling to confirm the renewal of her automatic deposit agreement. He thanked her for reversing a late fee she hadn't known existed. Then he added, almost casually, that her parents had given him her work email and her schedule so he could reach her at a convenient time. The world seemed to tilt. Her parents hadn't just used her money, they had handed out her professional information like spare napkins. Privacy wasn't something Mara expected to guard from her own family, but in that moment, she realized she had none. She drove straight to their apartment that evening, confronting them gently but firmly. "I deserve to know what I'm paying for," she said. Her mother stiffened. "We feel attacked." Her father crossed his arms. "Take that tone with your coworkers, not with us." Haley laughed from the hallway. "Should we tip you now or later?" Mara left before she said something she couldn't take back. The next afternoon, the group chat buzzed. A single message appeared, sharp as glass. We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely. Mara read it twice. 3 times. It wasn't space they wanted, it was exile. No questions. No explanation. A clean severing. And Mara, instead of pleading, felt something inside her settle with a calm she had never known. She sat on her bed for a long time, phone resting on her palm like a final verdict. If this was the distance they asked for, she could honor it entirely. Then, unexpectedly, her phone buzzed again. Uncle Mark. His voice was soft, careful. I'm at your parents' place, he said. They asked me to help pack. Mara's breath caught. Pack what? Everything, he said. Clothes. Dishes. Photos. They are moving. Of course they were. They weren't just cutting her off, they were physically disappearing. Mark hesitated before adding, I'll make sure anything with your name on it gets returned. After the call ended, Mara opened the drawer where she kept years of color-coded receipts, green for housing, yellow for utilities, blue for transportation, red for medical, purple for everything else her family claimed to manage themselves. She had always kept them for her own sanity, but now they looked like something else, a map of all the ways she had abandoned herself to carry them. She spread them across the floor, the edges curling as if tired from being handled too much. She sat among them, knees pulled close, and let herself see the truth clearly for the first time. This wasn't love. This wasn't support. This was dependency dressed as loyalty. And she had allowed it to shape her entire life. The realization didn't break her, it freed her. That night, her friend Ethan came over. He tapped lightly on the door and let himself in as gently as always. They texted you, he said, reading her face. She handed him the phone. He stuttered the message, jaw tensing. You don't deserve this, Ethan murmured. Mara's voice didn't shake. I'm done. He sat beside her on the floor, paper piles surrounding them like silent witnesses. Then start with one thing, he said. Show me what you've been carrying. Mara handed him the stack of green receipts first. Ethan flipped through them slowly, his expression darkening with each page. The next morning, she sat in Dr. Patel's office, recounting everything. The text, the years of payments, the silence, the packing. Dr. Patel listened quietly before saying, ending a financial entanglement isn't abandoning your family. It's saving yourself. The words landed like permission she had never been given. When she left the office, her hands were steady. Her mind was clear. She knew exactly what she needed to do. That night, she slept with her phone on silent for the first time in years, face down as if refusing to let it control her anymore. The next morning, everything changed. When she finally checked her phone, the family group chat had exploded. Dozens of messages stacked on top of each other. Haley had started it. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Then her mother complaining she was being dramatic. Then, fine. We'll do everything without you. Mara read the original message again. Stop contacting us completely. The clarity she felt now was sharp as a blade. She walked to her kitchen table, laid out the receipts, and snapped photos of every category. Proof of 7 years of silent support. Her fingers didn't tremble. Then she sent one single precise message to the group chat. I'm honoring your request for distance. Here is a summary of everything I've been paying. These payments will end on the dates circled. Please transfer all accounts to your own names within 30 days. She attached each photo, one by one. Then added the final line. Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing. For 2 minutes, nothing. Then panic erupted. Her mother, Mara, what is this supposed to mean? Her father, money is not the same as family. Don't weaponize it. Haley, you're sick. You humiliated us. Typing bubbles swarmed the screen. More messages came. More accusations. We meant distance from your attitude. Her mother wrote. Mara responded calmly. Your message said stop contacting us completely. I'm honoring it. Her father sent a furious paragraph with no punctuation. Haley switched to emotional blackmail. If I end up in a dangerous place because I can't move, are you happy? Mara replied, I hope you stay safe, but I'm not responsible for your lifestyle. Calls started coming in. Mom, Dad, Haley, ringing over and over. Mara placed her phone on Do Not Disturb. She refused to be dragged back. 1 hour later, a private message appeared, from Uncle Mark. I'm dropping off a few boxes tonight. Stuff that belongs to you. When Mark arrived that evening, He stood quietly in Mara's doorway with 3 neatly stacked boxes. His jacket was dusted with moving day grit, his eyes steady with the kind of honesty she had relied on since childhood. "They tried to rush me," he said softly. "Told me not to bother with anything that wasn't theirs. But I saw your name on a few things." He set the boxes down gently. Inside, Mara found unopened kitchen towels, a blender still sealed in its packaging, a router they had never installed. Small things she had bought for them over the years, each forgotten or dismissed, still wrapped in plastic. She touched the tape on the blender box, feeling something tight inside her loosen. Mark watched her carefully. "You did a lot more for them than they ever admitted," he said. "Don't let them twist the story now." Mara nodded, grateful but quiet. After he left, she stood over the boxes for a long minute, the silence around her no longer jagged, just real. When she finally picked up her phone, the group chat had exploded again. Angry messages firing like sparks, each one accusing her of betrayal, disrespect, cruelty. She typed nothing back. Later that night, the messages changed tone as predictably as a tide. Anger softened into pleading. Her mother wrote, "Please don't do this. Your father isn't sleeping." Her father added, "I worked my whole life. You owe me respect." Then Haley shifted into panic. "If you stop paying the phone plan, how am I supposed to contact work? How am I supposed to get help?" Mara read the messages silently, feeling none of the old guilt tugging at her ribs. She responded once, "I'm not discussing money anymore." A strange stillness followed. Then Haley sent another message, almost confused. "Why are you so cold now?" Mara replied, calm and precise, "You told me not to contact you. I'm doing exactly what you asked." This time, the silence that followed wasn't angry. It was stunned. She placed her phone face down again, refusing to wait for their next attempt. Instead, she made tea, wrapped herself in a soft blanket, and allowed the quiet to settle in her apartment like a new piece of furniture. For years she had feared silence, mistaking it for loneliness. But now, sitting there, she realized silence could also mean safety, an end to a storm she never volunteered to stand in. Around midnight, the storm surged again, this time from extended family. "We never expected this from you, Mara," her aunt wrote. "This is extreme," a cousin added. Another chimed in with a tired line, "Family sacrifices for each other. Why can't you?" Mara didn't bother explaining what 7 years of unpaid sacrifice looked like. Instead, she uploaded a single document to the group chat, a clean list of resources, budget templates, rental aid programs, utility provider contacts, financial counseling numbers. No commentary. No emotion. Just solutions they could use instead of her. At the bottom, she wrote, "You're capable. You always have been." The chat fell silent. Truly silent. It was the kind of silence that came when people realized the person they leaned on wasn't collapsing this time. Hours later, at 2:03 a.m., her mother sent the final blow. "If you do this, you're dead to me." Mara stared at the words, waiting for the old familiar ache. It never came. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she wrote, and set her phone aside. She turned off the lights, crawled into bed, and let herself sleep, deeply, without fear of waking to another crisis that belonged to someone else. By morning, the group chat was eerily still, like a room after someone slammed the door and left. Mara made coffee, slow and intentional, then sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. There was no dread in her chest, no tightness around her ribs. Only clarity. She spent the next hour finishing what she had started. She removed her card from their shared phone plan, logged out of every account tied to their names, changed passwords, cancelled direct deposits, and transferred every remaining responsibility back to the people who should have been carrying it all along. Each confirmation email felt like she was snipping one thread after another, threads she hadn't realized were wrapped around her throat. When the last account was closed, she leaned back in her chair and exhaled, feeling her lungs fill in a way they hadn't in years. Later that week, she sat across from Dr. Patel again and admitted she felt both lighter and terrified. Dr. Patel smiled gently. "Peace can feel dangerous when chaos has been your normal," she said. Mara nodded, finally understanding. For the first time since childhood, she wasn't bracing herself for someone else's emergency. Ethan came by that evening with takeout. Warm food, soft conversation, and a quiet presence that didn't demand anything from her. He didn't offer solutions or opinions. He just sat beside her on the couch, letting the silence between them be calm instead of heavy. "I'm proud of you," he said after a while. Mara looked at him, surprised at how deeply the words landed. Not because she needed approval, but because she finally believed them. She told him about the boxes Mark brought, the silence in the chat, the last message from her mother. Ethan listened without flinching. "You didn't lose a family," he said. "You lost people who only loved what you could give." Mara swallowed. Slowly, recognizing the truth in his voice. For years she had measured her worth by how much she provided. Now she was learning she had worth simply because she existed. They ate together quietly, watching the sun dip behind the buildings outside her window. There was no chaos waiting for her. No message buzzing. No crisis demanding she fix it. For the first time in her adult life, dinner belonged only to her. In the days that followed, Mara began to rediscover her own routines. She walked through the city without checking her phone every few minutes. She cooked dinners she actually enjoyed instead of eating whatever was quickest before driving across town to put out someone's fire. She found herself picking up old hobbies, reading, sketching, even rearranging furniture in her apartment to make it feel more like a home and less like a waiting room for other people's problems. She noticed how quiet the apartment was, but now the quiet didn't scare her. It supported her. At work, she felt lighter, sharper, more focused than she had in years. Colleagues commented that she smiled more. Even her supervisor asked if she had taken a vacation. Mara laughed softly. Something like that. She knew this wasn't instant healing. But every day felt like another step toward a life she had never allowed herself to imagine. A life where she didn't owe her existence to obligation. A life where she could choose herself without guilt. A life where her worth wasn't tied to anyone's need. One evening after work, Mara opened the last of the boxes Mark had delivered. Inside was a small photo album she had forgotten she ever owned. Childhood pictures, some messy, some sweet, some bittersweet. In many of them, she saw the same pattern. She was standing a little behind everyone else. A step away. Half in the frame. Half out. Always present, never centered. She ran her fingers over each picture, not out of sadness, but acceptance. "You are doing your best," she whispered to the younger version of herself. "But you deserved better than this." As she closed the album, her phone buzzed with a single new message, not from family, but from Mark. "Just checking you're okay." Mara smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through her chest. "I'm okay," she replied. And she meant it. She placed the album back into the box, taped it shut, and stored it in her closet, not to hide her past, but to protect her future. The next weekend, Mara invited Ethan and Mark over for dinner, her first time hosting anything that wasn't a rushed family obligation. She cooked slowly, played soft music, and opened the windows to let the cool evening air drift inside. When they arrived, they didn't bring drama or demands, just laughter and warmth. They talked about simple things, work, funny clients Mark had helped move, a TV show Ethan kept insisting she watch. For the first time, Mara felt what family was supposed to feel like, steady, kind, uncomplicated. At one point, Ethan glanced around the apartment and said, "It feels peaceful in here." Mara set down a dish and realized he was right. The peace wasn't empty, it was hers. The night ended with hugs at the door and no hidden expectations. When she locked the door behind them, she leaned against it and smiled softly to herself. She had never imagined a life where the people who cared about her wanted nothing except her happiness. Over the next few weeks, Mara's world continued to rebuild itself in quiet, sturdy ways. She enrolled in a weekend pottery class, something she had always wanted but never had time for. She canceled the lease on her old storage unit and treated herself to new furniture, pieces chosen not for practicality but for joy. She started journaling, writing out the fears she still carried and the hopes she was finally letting grow. Every now and then, a memory of her family surfaced, her mother's sighs, her father's lectures, Haley's jokes, but the memories no longer had sharp edges. They passed through her like old weather. Sometimes she wondered if they would ever reach out again, but she no longer clung to the possibility. She had learned something important. Closure didn't require their apology. It came from her choosing herself every day. And she was choosing herself now, fully and without hesitation. On a bright Sunday morning, Mara walked to a small cafe near her apartment. She ordered her favorite drink, took a seat by the window, and watched the city move around her. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for a call, a crisis, or a demand. Her phone sat silent on the table, not an anchor but a simple object. She sipped her drink and let herself imagine the future, one filled with peace, boundaries, honest relationships, and a sense of self she had finally reclaimed. She wasn't the family's provider anymore.
She wasn't their safety net or their silent backbone.
She was simply Mara, a woman who had survived years of being used, who had walked away with dignity, and who was now building a life rooted in respect and freedom. When she stood to leave, sunlight spilled across her face. She felt steady, whole, ready, because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is step back from the people who take them for granted and step fully into their own life.